Hello, everybody. Hi. Welcome. I'm 1 minute early tonight. I had to restart everything. So always, just so everybody knows, I always try to go on. I start trying to make my connection about 5 minutes before the scheduled time. So sometimes I'm a little late coming in. That's what it is. Just sometimes it takes a little bit of time for that to make my computer to make a connection to YouTube's computer. And that's what that's all about. Hope everyone had a wonderful weekend. Oh my goodness. So we're going to have fun tonight. So on my last episode on Sunday, I attached all that binding to my two quilts on the serger. And I'm at least going to do the complete binding for one of the quilts. We'll see how it goes. But I pressed this one is the one I'm going to start with. Let me get a different camera angle here. There we go. Okay, so what I did today, I flipped the binding from the back to the front and pressed it. Remember, this is the one I used fusible thread in the lower looper on my serger. And that really worked quite well. Hi, Pamela. Welcome. Good to see you here. And so that's what I did with this, and it worked out well. Yeah, it worked out well. I think it's going to be lovely. I have a beautiful variegated thread for my top stitching here. It's got all those different pinks and purples and fuchsias in it. Okay. And then I'm using a fuchsia thread for the bobbin, which will match the quilt back, because the quilt back is actually a hot pink / fuchsia colored batik on the back of it. That's what I've got going on here, and we're going to get started. Hi, Janelle. I am too, Janelle. I got here on here 1 minute before my scheduled time. So I'm going to set up my stitch. Now I've already played around with the stitches, so I know which one I want to go to. Hi, Linda K, howdy. And what I'm going to be doing, of course, I'm on the Bernina 990 here, the new 990. And I'm going to swap my camera over. Let's see here. Hi, Christina. Let's see here. I want this camera for right now. There we go. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into sewing mode. And that's remember the stitch I had already selected. So what I'm going to show you, that stitch is a serpentine stitch in the quilting menu. Hold on. There we go. Let me just go back. Go to the quilting menu. And this is stitch 1313. There's 3 different serpentine stitches here. And unaltered, they're great to quilt with. But for the binding, let me show you what I've done here. So 9mm width this way. And I upped it to a 9mm length. Watch what happens. Let's go back here. Touch that. I'm going to just get that back out. So there's what the width of that stitch, the default is. This is beautiful to quilt with. But I'm not quilting tonight, so I want to bring those loops closer together. So I'm going to adjust the stitch length. And I know what it was earlier. It was 0.75. But if I watch this number right here, and here is the dial that I can use just to lengthen or shorten my stitch length. I'm going to start bringing it down. I want to bring it down to 9. So where I had it before, which is also on this 0.75 for the stitch length. That's what I'm going to use. My little test sew strip here, let me show you this. Right here in between my thumbs, This is what I'm using to top stitch the binding down with, right here. Okay. So, all of that being said, I'll use this a lot in the future. So what I've done, I have saved this to the internal memory, and to pull that up, I'm going to just select a different stitch. There we go. Now, if I wanted to pull up that stitch that I had altered and saved, there's a little heart right here. I'm going to touch that. And now there are the two stitches I have saved in my memory. I named it binding 9mm wide. If I touch that, it automatically brought my stitch that I programmed in with its adjustments. So I've only got to do that once. Something I really love about that. Excuse me. I have a frog in my throat tonight. So I'm going to move this camera right over here, and we're going to get started. I'm using the 1D, which means dual feed, the 1D foot. I'm going to put this down on the side table here so it does not vibrate. There we go. You can see this right back here. This is my dual feed. So if I just press straight down and lift it towards the back, it goes up out of the way if I don't want to use that. To engage it, I just push it straight down, and that's all there is to it. That's the built-in dual feed on this machine. Here is my quilt sandwich, my quilt. And all I got left to do, this turned out to be a pretty wide binding. Check it out. There's that binding. See how that beautiful, this fabric is a Sashiko fabric. I get it from Andover, UK. And these are actual, this is not printed. These are actual stitches. These are threads running through the fabric. It has texture to it, and it gives it a really nice effect. I love this fabric. Okay, so there's that. And I'm going to try one more adjustment right here. There we go. There we go. Okay. So when I'm binding, I'm always going to start right up here in this upper corner, okay? I'm going to start right in that fold line. And I'm using the 1D foot, so I'm going to line up the edge, this folded edge right here. Wait a minute, there we go. This folded edge right here with the toe, the inside toe of this 1D foot. Okay. I'm going to turn my laser light on and the needle camera on. Check that out. So now I can actually see when I move it, I can get a pretty good view as to where that's going to hit. Right there. Let me get my foot control closer to me. I have hardwood floors in this room, and that foot control, it really does slide. There we go. Perfect. Okay. So we're going to bring this camera back over to the needle cam for right now. There we go. And we're going to get started. I'm going to stop right there for just a second and pull these threads. Hold on to these threads. I do have it needle stop, needle down. I'm going to pull that extra thread out. That's looking really good. Now we're just going to keep on going. Now I am doing the easier binding first. The second quilt, I did not use fusible thread, so I've got to wonder clip that as I go. I will tell you, using that fusible thread is great. The great thing about it is I have nothing else to do. I just have to stitch it down now because I've already done all the prep work. And it was much faster to take this quilt to the ironing board and fuse it down with that thread than to sit there and do wonder clips, for sure. Yes, that looks really good. Really good. Now, the color has just got all the colors of the quilt and the binding in it. So, yay. Let me look on the back of it real quick here. Oh, yes. Perfect. Perfect, perfect. Now, this is not a competition quilt, so, you know, for a quilt that you're going to use or even hang in your home, you don't have to hand stitch the binding down, everybody. That used to be the only way I would do binding, because that's how my Meemaw taught me, was to hand stitch it all down. But back then, we did not have machines that had all these awesome, customizable decorative stitches on it like we do today. That machine is just purring right along, isn't it? Woohoo! Okay. I'm going to move my camera a little bit here and try to get a little bit different angle. Let's try a different cam for a second. Well, you'll never see the machine with that. Okay, so we'll go back to this first one. I'll have to reposition that camera. There we go. Oh, Linda, I tell you, about 7 years ago, I came in first part of December, off of the road. And while I'm talking, I'm moving that camera, everybody. Just so you know. And I tell you, I had 15 of my quilts quilted that I'd left no binding on. And I looked at that pile of quilts and I said to myself, you know what? I am going to use my machine and bind those down on my machine. And since then, I honestly have not looked back. There's the other. That's a much better view now, isn't it? Okay, there we go. Okay. So now I do, unless I'm making a quilt for competition, or if a customer wants me to hand stitch one down, it's the only time I will do it. The only time I will do it. Oh, thank you, Chris. It did turn out nice, didn't it? I don't know how it's coming across on your end. This is a very color intensive quilt. It's all jewel tones, very bright and happy. this camera one more time, everybody. Hold on. Just trying to get the best angle possible here. There we go. Move this. And up just a hair. There we go. Let's bring the zoom out some. There we go. Let's try that there. See how that goes. I'm at my corner and I'm putting it back to the beginning of the pattern. Let me just lower my needle. I'm going to pivot. And that means I need to bring this next edge to the front here. Okay. Don't know if I've ever showed y'all. Let me just do this here real quick. Let me go to my other camera for just a second. Okay, so here at my sewing table, check this out. I have a 50-inch monitor. There we go. There's my monitor. And right there is my chat window. So yeah, it makes it a lot easier for me to read it. I got this TV, believe it or not, it's a 4K TV, and Walmart, believe it or not, Walmart had, this was a closeout special for $199. And I tell you what, not only you can watch TV on it, I can play my video game, I can also do all my streaming on it also, because it's also hooked up to my computer. Okay, go back to that. Let me go back to my handy cam view. There we go. Now then, let me get all this bulk down this way. Move this over this way. Then we should be ready to go. Okay. I'm just picking up loose threads as I see them. That's just one of my little quirks. I see a loose thread, I have to pick it up. It just drives me nuts. Let me pull this up here though, you can see what the stitching looks like. There we go. It adds a little bit of texture to the binding. There you go, you can see that serpentine stitch now right there. And what I'm doing, I'm keeping the weight off of it as it's going into the machine. That way it doesn't bunch the stitches up and all that. was going to put on my walking foot and do this with, check this out everybody. There's the Bernina walking foot. Oops, there it is. I even had the open toe sole plate put on it and everything. But the stitch I'm using was too wide. I can only do a 5.5 millimeter wide stitch on this one. And I wanted to do a 9 millimeter wide. That's why I'm not using this. But it's working fine with the built-in dual feet as well. For what it's for binding, so yay. Everyone, I've had Berninas in the past, and I'm almost ashamed to say, I'm not ashamed to say it, but I always keep my extra feet, my feet that doesn't come with a machine when I sell my machine, generally speaking. I have 3 of these, number 50s. They have 3 different sole plates. One is a stitch in the ditch, and then the other is a general purpose, and then an open-toed. That way, I can have each one set up with a different foot plate on it, and I don't have to swap out foot plates. I just grab the walking foot that has the foot plate on it that I want. Yeah, I know. With any machine, I'm always about the feet and the accessories. It will be interesting to see if one bobbin will do this entire binding. This is a fairly large quilt. These Bernina bobbins, they have 30% more thread on them than, say, a class 15 bobbin, so we'll see. I think it'll be close. If it doesn't do it, it'll be awful close to doing it all on one bobbin. Clip that thread. Snippy snip. Another quarter here. And we'll turn it. Perfect. Perfect. I'm gonna raise my needle, set it back to the beginning of the stitch pattern. There we go. Now I'll straighten out this next edge. Okay. Yeah, I quilted a bunch of wishbones. I don't know if you can see, you can kind of see this pattern here. These are actually wishbones on the quilting. Let me go to my other camera and I'll try to get you a peek at that. Better look. There we go. Now you can see my wishbones. That's what they call, that's what those are called, are wishbones right there. And a really good view is right in here for that wishbones. Okay. Woohoo, moving right along. Let me see something here. Let me have a look-see so I can tell where we're at. Yeah, so when I get to the next corner, right here, I only got one more side. This will be 3 sides. See how fast that's going? And you'll see when we start the other one here, it's not going to go this fast. I'm going to use the same decorative stitch on the binding. However, I did not have fusible thread on it. So I will be manipulating that fabric quite a bit. So you can see what I'm doing. Here we go. Okay. Get this last edge all lined up. Here we go. Get some of that bulk out and lay flatter. There we go. That is better. Yes, in the future I'll be using fusible thread. I like how this turned out. Very pleased. If you did not have a serger, you could still use the fusible thread in the same manner to do the binding, attaching the binding. quite a few people in the shop today. I'm glad I didn't try to do this at noon because it would have been interrupted every few minutes if I had. It's a good thing. Everybody, guess what? When I get to this corner, this binding's done on this quilt. Wow. And it's, wow, that was fast. It's like 35 minutes or so. How about that? Okay. And there it is, everyone. There it is. Check this out. Binding is done on this quilt. How about that? Check it out. Here's the back of it. Beautiful. Love it. Here's a closer picture of that pretty fuchsia pink background. Oh, thank you. I love it too. Yes, Chris, what I did, I attached the binding to the back of the quilt on my serger, fusible thread in the lower looper. Okay? Then when I flipped it to the front, because it went through the serger with this side up. So the lower looper put the fusible thread on the front side of the quilt. When I brought that around, folded it over and pressed it, it fused it down like that. And it's super, super fast and easy. This is a queen size quilt that I just did all the binding stitching on in basically 30 minutes. How about that? Pretty good. Pretty good. Pretty darn good. Wow. Moving right along. Okay, so I'm going to move this one out of the way. I'll spread it out here as best as I can. Let me back my camera out. And that's in. So you can get a better look at this quilt right here. There we go. Okay. Isn't it pretty? Gold and green and fuchsia, magenta, a little hint of purple in there. And then the hands, this is the yellow stitching on this. This is all hand stitched, everybody. Okay, the running stitches, those are all that's hand stitching with like probably an 8-weight embroidery floss thread in it. Look at that. And yes, the border, everybody that knows me knows I love to go mushroom hunting. It's got a mushroom border all the way around the edge of the quilt. Just lovely. This would really be a beautiful, not only beautiful for a bed, it would be great to hang on the wall for decorative purposes. It would be stunning. So I am going to fold this up, and then we're going to get started on quilt number 2. I'm going to move this camera over here. So I have room to manipulate this one here. Okay. Just folded up the quilt top. The quilt, this isn't top anymore. This is a finished quilt. Woohoo! It's always a good feeling to have a quilt completely finished, awaiting to go to a new home. I'll do a better job of this when I get it into the other room. But, let's see here. There we go. There we go. One finished quilt. Woohoo! One down, one to go. Okay. Let me get to my other quilt over here. I'm just going to set it on the machine. I'll set this one over here on my other chair. Woohoo! Alrighty, now then, I'm going to spread this out a little bit. There we go. There's a corner up there to get started on. Quilt number 2, this is my decoupage trip around the world. Isn't it beautiful? I love them both. They're both totally different, but boy howdy, this is a beauty as well. Okay, I think it's time for a few sips of coffee. Oh my goodness. And everybody, someone asked the other night, I'd already logged off and couldn't answer. But yeah, I always, if anybody's interested in the quilts that you've seen here, I'm going to put in my email address, first come, first serve. If you're interested in purchasing one of my quilts, I would be happy to do that. Hold on here. Okay, come on now. Keep a wireless keyboard. Make a connection. There we go. There we go. Okay. Let's see here. Back it up. Okay. My email address is contact that is my email address. If you're interested in one of these, in either quilt, any of my quilts, just drop me a note and I'll shoot you a price for it. Okay, so the one I just finished, it's $350 if anybody's interested. Just going to throw that out there. This one I would have to have a bit more for. There's a lot more work in this one on my behalf. I'd have to have $450 for this one if anyone was interested in it. Okay. So let me get a sip of coffee. Do not want to drip coffee on that quilt. Woohoo, we talked about that the other night, didn't we? Okay. So notice this one that's not clipped or anything like that. So I will be adjusting this binding as I go. And that's not going to be that bad. The only thing I'm really going to fuss with in the very beginning is fixing my corners properly, mitering these corners on the front. Because once you get the corners done, the corners are the hardest part, in my opinion, on binding. Because once they lay nice and square, like this, then you've got it clipped after that. Okay, now I'm just going to do the corners as I come to them. Okay, it's 6:45. Let's see how long this one takes. We'll see if there really was a huge time savings by doing that. And I have to change my threads. Ooh, almost forgot that one. Let me swap to my other camera for this. You can see what I'm doing here. Yeah, I would not want the magenta thread on that one, that's for sure. Okay. And yes, one bottom, oh, there's still a lot of thread on that, everybody. Look at that. Can you see that? There's at least a third of a bobbin of thread left because I filled it up before I started that one. Yeah, there's plenty of thread left on that. This is going to be my upper thread. It's a black and white Aurifil variegated. Now I'm going to use a solid white on the bottom though because the back of the quilt is white. Let's see here. There we go. White bobbin. Little shiny. All those little metal things around that, that is for the bobbin sensor. It has a very accurate bobbin sensor. There we go. That's changed out. Next, got to change my upper thread here. That was the color of that upper thread that I just put on that last quilt. It's a beautiful color. Okay. And I'm just going to thread my upper thread path. And she's all threaded now and she is ready to go. She is ready to go. Bring my little extension table back over. I love the fact that I don't have to take my embroidery arm off to disconnect my extension table. It just all slides together. It's pretty cool. I love that feature on Berninas. Okay. Alrighty. Let me do a test sew before I start I'm sure it'll be okay, but I tell you what, the time you don't do it is when something's not right. You know what I'm saying? Hi, Lee. Lee from Naples. Howdy. So I tell you what, Lee, I bought this quilt top. This quilt I'm getting ready to bind. I bought the quilt kit I brought it home from Naples I was down there last March, and it's perfect. I bought it last March there at Flash Sewing Quilt in Naples. This kit. And in the other videos, I pieced it. I pieced it on my serger. Let me swap over to my other camera now. There we go. There it is. And yes, so this quilt originated, the parts to create it, in Naples, Florida. Okay. Now I will just take my time. Bring my camera back in a little closer. There we go. Very nice. Perfect. Perfection. And yes, everybody, I am sewing on the Bernina 990 tonight. This quilt, I use a more of a summer weight batting in it. It's nice and light. usually, hold on just a minute, I'll show you which stitch I'm using. Get my needles positioned. There we go. So what I'm using, let me go here. So in the quilting menu, I use stitch 1317 right here. And if I pick that, check it out, I've altered this stitch. That's not the normal stitch for that. So the way it would normally look is right there. Okay. So this is one of the three, this is the smallest serpentine, but then what I did, I moved the length up here down to 0.75. Which on this number would be 9, okay? So I altered that stitch to bring those loops closer together, which is what I wanted for my binding. Then I saved it, so to get back there, all I really have to do is go to my favorites, and there is where I named it binding, 9mm wide, touch that, and it brings me right here to this stitch that I programmed in and saved. So I've created a custom stitch for my binding, is what I did. And I just realized I did not move my camera. So let me just reiterate that just a little bit here. So what I've done, this was stitch number 1317. If I go to the quilters menu, 1317, touch that, and then it didn't change because there's its normal default setting. All I did, I moved this down. So instead of saying 30 here, it would say 9.0, which is 0.75 stitch length. Right there. So you can see 9 and 9. Then I saved it into the machine, which means all I have to do to pull that up anytime in the future is touch my favorite heart button. And there I named it binding, 9mm wide. Right there, and then I have my stitch. Anytime I need it in the future, it's already programmed into my machine. Yes, they've always got great fabrics at Flash, Leah, don't they? Just leave it on this other camera for a while. Let me turn it a little bit there. There we go. Around that corner. Well, most machines, Leah, have some form of a serpentine stitch. I don't remember what the stitch number was on Baby Lock now, but if you look at your machine, you'll find one. It's a serpentine stitch is what it is. It's really my go-to stitch for top stitching binding down if I'm not going to use just a straight stitch. I like using a decorative stitch when I'm top stitching my binding down. Okay, you move some of that bulk over. Let's go back to our other camera here. There we go. Yes, it does. Yeah, so on this one, here you can see this. There's the front, there's the back. Front, back. Now if I wanted them closer to being equal on both sides, I'd have to use a smaller strip. I started with a 2.5 inch strip. I'm happy with this, the way it looks. This is not a show quilt. I might do something different if it was going to go on a show. Well, for one thing, if I was entering into a quilt into competition, I would definitely hand stitch the binding down. Thread I'm using on this binding is Orifil. It's a black and white variegated thread. Using that on top and then solid white on the bottom side. And this quilt top, I completely pieced it on my serger, everybody. Just picking up any loose threads I see as I go along. Here we go. I like slightly wider binding also, Lee. Okay. Yes, for this, I picked the Orifil because it was the only black and white variegated thread I had, and I do love Orifil as far as that goes. back this camera view out just a bit here. Wrong way. There we go. Coming up on another corner. Woohoo! Put a couple of clips in here to help me keep my corners where I want them. There we go. Yes, Lee, I would use that if I was on that machine. This machine has the dual feed built into it. So on a Bernina, let me go to my other camera view here. Okay, see this right back here at the back of the machine? See my finger bouncing? Well, that's the dual feed. So if I just push down on it, then pull back, let me raise my presser foot first. Down and back, it disengages the dual feed. To engage it, just push this lever down, and that's all I have to do to engage the dual feed on this machine. There's no screws to take out or anything like that. Now we'll go back to our other camera view. Let's see here. There we go. There we go. that little thread. There we go. There we go. I had to get the bulk of that quilt up on the table. There we go. Okay. So you can see what I was doing then. I had a lot of the weight of the quilt off the edge of the table. Excuse me. Off the edge of the front edge of the table here, and it was creating too much drag for it to feed through evenly. So that's why I keep adjusting this, is to keep the drag off of the weight, the drag or the weight of the quilt, so that the feed dogs will feed the fabric through evenly on the machine. That's what I was doing. Because I am not pushing or pulling the fabric through, I'm letting the machine pull the fabric into the machine. My job is to guide the fabric so it hits the foot exactly where I want it to land. Tell you, if I had just done a straight stitch to put down the edge of this binding with, these would have already been done, because that takes way less time than what I'm currently doing. I just like how this serpentine stitch adds texture to my binding. I really like to use that stitch for my binding. There we go. Okay, now I'll go ahead and deal with the bulk. Oh, everybody, we're down to our last side. Woohoo! Oop-de-doop-de-doo. Okay. Yes, it does. It's a lot of, it's all florals, Lee. It's really beautiful. The fabric, it's got black toil in it, and look at the black gingham right here. That was actually printed onto the border print fabric. And then with the black binding fabric, it just really frames it all in quite nicely, I think. This quilt reminds me, the fabric makes me think of my grandma Dalton. She loved these type of florals and stuff. Good night, Linda. Oh, hi, Kim. Well, quick, Kim, I've already got one binding done, and this is my last side of binding for this quilt. I will finish the binding on 2 quilts here in about another 10 minutes or so. Well, everybody, I found out today I will be at the Houston Quilt Festival this year. So if any of you are going to go to the Houston Quilt Festival, make sure you come by the Bernina Serger booth, and that's where I should be at. Oh, it will, Lee. My bobbin sensor isn't even flashing yet. This machine has really big bobbins, Lee. It'll hold 30% more thread than the Class 15 bobbins. like the ones you're used to. Hold on. Let me show you these bobbins here. Oops. This is a Bernina bobbin. Okay. 30% will hold 30% more thread than a class 15. And the stitch I'm using uses at least twice as much thread as it would, probably 3 times as much. It's just using a straight stitch to stitch binding down. But we'll take the bobbin out when I get this done. We'll see how much is left on it, because I am coming up to the end. I like the extra room also, Chris. It gives you a little bit of peace of mind, especially on a larger quilt. Now, if you're using a straight stitch, it's pretty easy to line the stitching up. Not as easy to do on a decorative stitch. And there we go. Woohoo. Trim my threads now. And that quilt is now complete. How about that? Woohoo. I'm going to back the camera up and spread it out a little bit. Then we'll take a look at that bobbin so we can see how much bobbin we have left. Let's turn this over so you can see the back of it as well. There we go. I'll have to lay this out on the table and go through and pick up any straggly spare threads that are back there. But anyway, there it is. Woohoo! Another one is done. Yay! And let's go over here and to the other camera, because we're going to look and check and see how much bobbin I had left. Come here, you. There we go. There's a lot of bobbin thread left, everybody. There's probably half a bobbin of thread left there. Yep. And that, how about that? Isn't that awesome? It is so exciting when you have got a quilt completely finished. And I tell you, that first quilt, it made a journey. It came all the way from Denver, Colorado, the quilt top did, to here. Then it stayed here for a few years before it got quilted. And now it's a finished, complete quilt. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to this other camera. I'm going to bring that first quilt over here for everyone to see. Lee, this fabric backing, this is a white on white print. It's got a very tiny little floral print in it. And you'll never see it on camera, unfortunately, but it's a little white on white print. And you know, since the border fabric here is completely white, that's really the only color backing I felt comfortable putting on this quilt, because it's perfect for it. So this is quilt number 2. Here's quilt number 1 we did earlier tonight. And there's the finished binding on it. Isn't that pretty? Just bring the camera a little closer here. You can see all this yellow stitching here. That's all hand stitching. The back of it. In the front. Yay! 2 finished quilts. I'm so excited. And like I said earlier, someone asked me on my last episode if I was going to sell these quilts, and I didn't see the message until after I'd already logged off. So I was going to talk about that a little bit tonight. Yes, any quilt I make is always for sale. Here is my email address. Typing it out. There's my email address if you're interested. This one is quilt number 1. It's the jewel tone mushroom quilt. The other one is a floral trip around the world. So I'm going to put in mushroom quilt. And my floral trip around the world. And those are just the prices. If anyone's interested, shoot me an email and we'll talk about it. But anyway, there they are. That's what I had tonight. Gosh, this was fun. It is always a very satisfying moment for a quilter when you have finished quilts. I have some other ones here as well, just some hanging up on the walls as far as that goes. But yay! Oh, thank you, Janelle. Yeah, this floral quilt, everybody, there's one of my YouTube videos, I pieced that start to finish on the serger. Both quilts, the binding was attached on the serger, and I quilted these on my long arm, all free motion quilting. Oh my goodness. So I'm picking up threads and putting them in the wastebasket. Let me go to my other camera. There we go. Hello there. So everybody, that's what I had for you tonight. Let's see. The next scheduled episode is Saturday, 9:90. We're going to be making rag dolls in the hoop, and we'll be making Little Red Riding Hood. The Riley Blake series is what I'm going to call that one. But this week we'll be making Little Red Riding Hood all in the hoop. It'll be so much fun. Oh, thank you, Chris. Listen, everybody. I will probably be on later this week, though. Before that, the episode on Friday, and I will make an announcement about that very soon. Thank you, Lee. No worries. And listen, have a glorious rest of your week. Stay safe, take care, have fun, happy sewing, and I will see you all in a few days. Thank you, everybody. Good night. Goodbye. Love all of you. Good night. Chris, Saturday and Sundays are always at 12 noon. So Saturdays I do the 990, and on Sundays I do sergers. So 2 days in a row.